Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show. Hey, guys, it's Phil Tarrant here, and already I can hear myself mumbling. Do not worry, I am not drunk. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I've just come from the dentist, and my mouth is pretty numb at the moment. So if I sound like I'm slurring my words, I do apologise, but we move on irrespective of what's happening. But yeah, it's funny how I can hear myself talking. You probably can't notice it, I guess, in the studio. Brady Yoshia, but I am stumbling a little bit here. But Brady, how you going? You well?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's good. So it's Friday. It's Friday morning. We're moving up into Easter. I've just been watching the television, and they had the Federal Treasurer, Frydenberg, that's a bit of a word used at the moment, talking about some of the government's, the Labor's tax policies, a bit of a claw on towards tax income. Lots of uncertainty at the moment in the election coming up, lots of uncertainty in property markets. Yourself, you're a property investor, but also work within the buyer's agency space. What's your
Correct.
overall view towards the market at the moment?
So I think the market has improved from where it was at the beginning of the year and from the end of last year. There is a little bit more confidence in the marketplace because buyers are out there looking to buy now. It's a great time given the fact that the market has pulled back. And also, I guess, even though we're looming close to the elections, people are seeing that the marketplace is not falling apart and therefore are taking advantage of wanting to buy prior to the election, particularly with the uncertainty of negative gearing. So I think that there's a lot more of a buzz happening now, and people were sitting on the fence, particularly sellers as well. And I guess that the feeling of their lives need to go on, they're taking the opportunity to, give a bit of a dip in the water and see whether they'll get a buyer for their home or not. And surprisingly, there's quite a lot of buyers out there at the moment.
So you are a director with Bell Property Advisory. Now, I'm familiar with the Bell Property brand here in New South Wales. So is this part of the same Bell Property organisation?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So it's a separate division that was established 12 months ago. So we are solely just a buyer's agency. We buy properties, investment properties, primary residence. We help first home buyers, build clients' portfolios, work with expats. So essentially it's exactly the same as what another buyer's agency would offer, just under the Bell Property banner.
Okay. And Bell Property, it's pretty active on the northern beaches of Sydney, by memory. Is that pretty much
Correct. Eastern suburbs as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been sort of with Bell Property?
A year.
Okay.
Exactly a year.
And prior to that, what's the sort of backstory? Were you
Sure.
a real estate agent once upon a time? Yeah.
Yes, I was a real estate agent for 6 years, and then I became a buyer's agent for another 5 years, and then joined Bell Property Advisory.
Okay. And what sort of stuff do you buy, or which sort of market do you like working with? Is it owner-occupiers? Is it property investors?
It's a combination of both, and I think it goes in cycles. Sometimes we're working more with the portfolios, other times we're working more with clients upsizing. At the moment, it's about 50-50.
Okay. And which sort of market do you concentrate with?
So I predominantly do a lot on the upper North Shore, the lower North Shore, northern beaches, and also eastern suburbs, part of the city.
Is there much money washing around at the moment, or is everyone pretty conservative, do you think?
I think people are quite conservative. However, given the fact that there are some good opportunities out there, particularly off-market properties, so therefore people that can still invest from an investment perspective are looking to either start a property portfolio or continue to build their portfolio.
So it's a really important point, and I'm a big advocate of buyer's agents. Every property I've ever bought is been via a buyer's agent. But you talk about off-market properties. Now, this is a concept some of our listeners might not be familiar with. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. So essentially what happens is there are a lot of sellers out there today that want to sell their property. However, they either are very private and don't want to have their neighbours coming through their properties, or they just want to try first to see whether there'll be enough interest in their home. So therefore, they'll get in touch with their local real estate agent, and the real estate agent will offer these properties to buyer's agents essentially, or even their database. So they won't be advertised on the internet or in any print media. It's just really an invitation to either a private group inspection or private times for the individual buyer's agent.
And is off-market properties normally higher value properties? Is there also lower value properties as well? It's largely irrelevant, is it?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both. And what we're finding today is that more and more people are going down that path, whereas before there'd be maybe 10 to 20% off market. At the moment, we're buying about 60% off market.
Really? Is it that much? Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
And is that because people are thinking, oh, well, you know, I don't want nosy neighbours to know what I'm up to, or I might not get the price I want, so I don't want to be publicly or visibly sort of, you know, not being able to sell this property because it allows them to remarket at a later point?
Correct. And also some sellers just want qualified buyers to come through their property. So therefore they'll say, let's try and see if we can get a quick sale with a handful of buyers that are really looking in that particular area or for that particular property.
And the markets that you operate within Northern Beaches, eastern suburbs, how are those markets performing right now? Are they soft markets? Everyone talks about it being a buyer's market at the moment. Do you sort of agree to that sentiment?
I do agree to that. However, as always, it comes down to location. So there's certain parts of the eastern suburbs that are still very high. There's other parts of the eastern suburbs where it has pulled back. I would say especially where there's apartments. So Bondi, for example, lots of 2-bedroom apartments available at the moment, whereas 18 months ago, people were paying a premium for those 2-bedroom apartments. So although they're not a bargain price, they're a little bit more easier to negotiate on. There's certain parts of the Lower North Shore that is still very high in value, particularly the Mosman, Balmoral area. Then we look at the Upper North Shore. The Upper North Shore has pulled back quite substantially. However, still good prices being achieved there. So it just depends on the location and the type of property that is being offered.
There's a and we're recording for North Sydney, so I'm quite familiar with this particular area around here because I go out for lunch and stuff. I have a nose around, and there's a new train station going in just up on the corner of Miller and Berry. Have you noticed and what, you know, this is irrespective of whether there's North Sydney or somewhere else, this infrastructure development changes the dynamics of property prices. Have you noticed anything along the belt up towards where's it going, Chatswood, which has changed the way in which off-the-plan apartments are being built, or the way other properties are changing in value?
Yes, so it's becoming more desirable. So, because, for example, Crow's Nest. Crow's Nest has always been a popular area. However, it's even more popular now based on the light rail. And I would say that there have been a lot more in terms of high-rise apartments that are being built and that have been built. The attraction has been the light rail. So it's been a positive thing for property. And in fact, we bought a property for one of our clients in North Sydney last week. And there was a little bit of a concern from their perspective. It was a house. They wanted to find out exactly what was going on, how it would affect them. But in actual fact, after doing all the due diligence, it's a positive for them. It's not going to affect where their house is.
Yeah. And has there been a rezoning change along the belt where the light rail's going up, do you know?
There has been some rezoning, but not entirely.
So if you're looking at purchasing investment property, and, you know, one of the fundamentals that a lot of people talk about is that you want to be investing in areas which have infrastructure growth and development or upsides. How do you as a buyer's agent go about exploring these areas and understanding what's going to be the drivers that may shift property values moving forward? So
that's a very good question. So we do look at what the infrastructure is, what else is coming into the area. So, for example, and I know I'm going to be talking about an area that we haven't even spoken about, going out to Fairfield. There's a lot of development there because of the airport that's due to be built there in 2025 and maybe before then. So people are buying there as investments now because of the future growth, the universities and various other business hubs that are coming out there. It's the same thing with Macquarie Park. People have invested there based on that. And North Sydney has always been a very, very good place to invest in. It's becoming even more popular now because of the proximity close to the city. So therefore, with the light rail and various other things that are happening along the way towards North Sydney, it's certainly a huge attraction to investors.
And what's your philosophy when you're representing your clients and finding properties for them to invest in, not sort of owner-occupier stuff, but investing? Do you try and target more established properties, new properties? What are the dynamics or drivers that you look for in order to recognise a good investment?
So I guess from a yield perspective, we want to keep costs down. So to be looking in most cases for an older style block, whereby there won't be the high strata fees. In other instances, there could be an attractive lease back, which would appeal to some clients in terms of, first 2 years, they can guarantee that they'll get a rent back from the developer. That's attractive. It comes back to what's important to the individual client. However, we do look at all aspects, from the yield, the growth, the capital growth, and we look at what else is attractive in the area.
I think you mentioned that you've been a buyer's agent for about 6 years now. Is the way you see the world today versus what it was 6 years ago? How's that changed?
Very much so. I would say that when I first started as a buyer's agent, it would be 1 in 50 people would use a buyer's agent. Today it would be 1 in 10 people using a buyer's agent. So it's grown substantially, and it's going to continue to grow.
And do you find yourself competing a lot more against other buyer's agents when you're looking at properties?
A little bit more now than what we did before. I think it's not so much competing against them. It's feeling that the public are embracing it more than what it was before.
Which is a good thing, and I'd like to think that Smart Property Investment Show, who's been chatting about buyer's agents for many years now, is part of that journey. We have 100,000 odd people listen to this this show every month, so there's a lot of more informed and engaged property investors, and that's pretty much what our objective is, putting this together. How are you finding people are reaching out to you? How do clients find Bell Property Advisory?
So I think in some cases it's referral from some of the local real estate agents, not only from the Bell agents. It's because we're out there on the ground every week. The agents see us, and then the agents will recommend them to us. It would be online advertising, Instagram, Facebook, and then through the Bell network as well. So there's various forms that people would reach out to us.
And real estate agents and buyers agents, you guys get on okay?
Yes, we do.
Right?
We actually we work very well together, because a real estate agent feels, wow, when a buyer's agent's involved in the equation, their client is qualified and ready to go. The buyer's agent knows the process, so it's actually a match made in heaven.
So do you think real estate agents, when you look at trying to transact a property, and obviously the vendor wants the highest price possible and the buyer wants the lowest price possible, this whole concept of a qualified buyer, that's because they're represented by a buyer's agent, does it give you greater negotiation power as a result of that?
It certainly does, yes. Yes.
And how would you say, they can best be utilised by a buyer's agent? Is it just really, certainty that a sale can happen if they get the price they want?
Yes, and I think we've developed relationships with the real estate agents, so we understand how they work. And also we will do our own due diligence in terms of recent sales, comparable sales, and therefore it's not just going in with any offer, it's substantiated.
And your story, Brady, investing in property, are you a property investor? You've been investing in property. I hope you have been.
Yes,
Your buyer's agent.
Absolutely.
Tell us about your portfolio.
So my portfolio was built up, and then unfortunately I went through a divorce and had to sell everything.
Okay. So you sold down everything?
Sold down everything,
okay. And
I'm just building it up again. A very good example that I want to talk about when I was building my portfolio was in 1999, close to the year 2000, I bought an off-the-plan apartment in Greenwich. Everybody said to me, how can you spend $580,000 on an apartment where you can buy a house for that? And I just saw the growth there. Unfortunately, I had to sell that property, but today that particular unit is worth 16218. So it was a really good foresight in terms of the area and what the property had to offer. And again, I talk to my clients about buying different types of properties. Sometimes I would recommend off the plan, other times I wouldn't. And where I'm at the moment now is diversifying the portfolio. So not just buying in one area and one type of property. So it would be a 2-bedroom apartment, North Shore, eastern suburbs, so Randwick. Randwick's a good area because of the light rail.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that I'm looking for myself and what I'm doing. It's also very important to be buying a property that could offer versatile use. So a house, but that could be longer term, rented out to a family plus, the older generation that, want to move in, because I'm finding that that's changing a lot with the demographics in Sydney. So it's very important to look at all uses for every property. The other thing is I'm looking at something where Airbnb
Okay.
is very important.
It's getting quite popular now where people are buying investment properties specifically for the purpose of renting it out via Airbnb.
Yes.
And there are now some property management businesses that just do that, right?
Correct. There are. Yes.
And you, the idea of renting a property out via Airbnb is that you are able to secure higher rents and therefore higher yields, but then you have the challenge of not having the certainty of tenants coming in and out, and it can impact you from a lending point of view. So there's compromise by doing that, but if you get it right and you manage it well, you can do pretty well out of it.
Well, that's right. So if I was advising a client, I would advise them not to be buying in a seasonal area. Without mentioning any areas, I think it's good to be buying as close to the city as possible. It's very desirable. So it would be popular for business people, not just families holidaying. So I think that's very important when you're looking at that. And then you do need to factor in for the quieter months. But overall, if you buy well and you have a good company managing it for you, because there's some fabulous companies out there that will style it and do everything, clean it, everything from woke to go, and you've got the right team on board, I think it can be a winner.
And would you recommend people buying their first investment property for the purpose or utility of Airbnb? Would you be reluctant to do that?
I'd be reluctant to do that.
Yeah. And why would that be?
I think it's very important to get the first one right. I'd rather go more conservative, buy smaller, but in the right location where you know that you're going to always have a need for a tenant, even if it's in an area close to a university, as opposed to, buying somewhere else that's bigger and that can serve the purpose for both, for the Airbnb and for the long-term tenant. I just think it's too risky. It's the first one.
Yeah. And going back to your role before being a buyer's agent as a real estate agent, were you a good real estate agent?
I'd like to think I was a good real estate agent, yes. And interestingly enough, I think the thing that I say to a lot of people that I meet today, it's very important when you are in that role to maintain the relationships with your vendors, because a lot of those vendors have now come back to me and I'm building their portfolios for them. I'm helping them buy. We do buyer advocacy, helping them choose the right agent to sell their property. So it lends itself very well. And obviously if you are ethical and do the right thing, it's certainly going to work with you through your career if you change over.
And I guess your story changing, and a lot of real estate agents listen to the Smart Property Investment Show, but I also like to understand the psyche of real estate agents because they're interesting people.
Yes.
They do a good job. Did you go to sleep one day as a real estate agent, wake up the next day as a buyer's agent, or was it sort of more of a subtle transition over?
Well, I went to sleep one day as a real estate agent. The next day I woke up as a buyer's agent. I guess a fantastic opportunity arose with Cohen Handler. Happy to mention the company that I was with. I had 5 fantastic years there.
So you worked as a buyer's agent with Cohen Handler, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Yeah. What, down in the eastern suburbs?
No, I was in the Mosman office. Okay. So when the Mosman office opened, I joined Cohen Handler.
Okay. So you just went, I'm leaving my job as a real estate agent and I'm going to be a buyer's agent. Sort of, yeah.
Pretty much like that. I was intrigued by the buyer's agent world and took the plunge.
What was your first day of work like as a buyer's agent? What did you do?
So it was very similar to a real estate agent because essentially the first day you contacting people, letting them know about the change. So there was nothing different from being a selling agent. I think the difference starts when you engage with a client, they come on board, and that process is very different from the selling side of things. So you sourcing properties, you're going to open homes on the other side as opposed to hosting the open home.
Yeah, and I guess having had a foot in both camps, it's invaluable when dealing with real estate agents. Do you find that people in property investors that use buyer's agents, do they? I would say they have an advantage in terms of the knowledge and skills they have of the buyer's agent, but are they wired any differently, do you think? Is there anything that makes them sort of better investors, do you think? Like actual property investors that use buyer's agents?
I think that everybody can invest in a property and everyone has the ability to go out and negotiate. But I think that they have an advantage with the buyer's agent because we've got insight in terms to a lot more, and we have a lot more time to do the due diligence and see what's going on. And we've got a wider range of opportunities offered to us. So there's definitely a huge advantage to be working with a buyer's agent as opposed to building the portfolio on your own.
And you're only operating in the city market? You're also in other states as well?
So we've got other agents that we refer to in the other states. So we'll work with clients that are wanting to build across Australia.
Oh, that's cool. And hypothetical, if you had $800,000 to spend on the property in Sydney right now, where would you be? Where would you spend your money?
That's a very good question.
It is. Which is the median? The median's about $850,000, I think.
Yes.
Now.
So if we're looking from an apartment perspective, I think I'd be looking either lower North Shore, the Northern Beaches at the moment with $800,000. Yeah.
And what about a house?
So a house, probably be looking in further out in the Hills District. That's where I'd be looking.
Yeah, being a bit cagey there. You're not giving too much away. I guess that's what you guys do. But Brady, look, I've enjoyed the chat. Keep connected, Brady. Let us know how you're finding the world, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. No worries. Remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you're not yet subscribing to our daily morning newsletter, so you're the first to know what's happening in property and property investment, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We're also working on some pretty cool stuff here, which I'll let you know about next week in relation to an event for property investors. So watch this space. If you're a social media person, remember to check out Smart Property HQ. Follow us there. And if you like what we're doing with this podcast, just press the subscribe button wherever you listen to it. We'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.